guys excited to be here? So come on, say good afternoon to me. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Swapnila Gupta, and today I welcome you all to one of the most awaited sessions of the Techfest 2025, the Defense Symposium 2.0. Manoj Pandey, 29th Chief of Army Staff of the Indian Army. Come on, ladies and gentlemen, huge round of applause. Our second guest is Admiral R. Kumar, the 25th Chief of Navy Staff of the Indian Navy. And Air Chief Marshal Vivek Ram Chaudhary, 27th Chief of Air Staff. To moderate, steer, and lead the insightful and power-packed conversation, we have Rear Admiral Philippos, ADSM NM retired, who is an alumnus of Lawrence School, Lovedale, and the 67th course of National Defense Academy. He was commissioned in the Indian Navy in January 1986. Presently, we all know him as the adjunct professor at the Aerospace Engineering Department of the IIT Bombay that he joined in April 2022 after his retirement from the Indian Navy. He is a helicopter pilot qualified on Seeking and Chetak helicopters. The flag officer has flown extensively during Operation Pavan in Sri Lanka and Operation Restore Hope in Somalia in 1993. He was awarded the Nau Sena Medal for his tenure in command of Brahmaputra. He served as Principal Director, Aircraft Acquisition, Assistant Chief of Naval Staff, Air, and Flag Officer of Naval Aviation between 2011 and 2022. This decade saw a huge transformation in naval aviation with the induction of 45 MiG-29K fighters and many more projects. For his tenure as Flag Officer, Naval Aviation, he was awarded the Ati Vishisht Seva Medal by Honorable President of India exactly 40 years after his father, who retired as an Air Marshal, received the same award. He's passionate about flying, and in 2021, he undertook the very first landing on board the indigenously built aircraft carrier INS Vikrant. Interestingly, he's the only pilot to have flown from all 4 aircraft carriers of the Indian Navy. So ladies and gentlemen, with a huge round of applause, please welcome Rear Admiral Philippos. Over to you, sir.
Thank you for that introduction. And ladies and gentlemen, we are extremely honored and privileged to be in the same hall as 3 former chiefs of the Army, Navy, and Air Force. And I can assure you we are going to have an enthralling 1.5 hours with hearing about the insights from each of the chiefs. And they would be covering all aspects of their respective responsibilities which they had, the Army, Air Force, and Navy, and the challenges faced by our country, and with particular emphasis on their specific domains. We will be starting the session with a lecture by General Manoj Pandey, the former Army Chief. So his lecture will be focused on the Army ethos, the leadership, the Army way of life, about the integrity and everything which goes with being an Army officer or a soldier in the Army, and what makes an Army man different. This emphasis will be on Army as a way of life, and how the army as in the armed forces creates model citizens, and it'll be basically on leadership and the aspects of technology and other aspects you can bring up in the Q&A session. So I'm honored to tell you some details about General Pandey. General Manoj Pandey served as the 29th Chief of the Army Staff of the Indian Army. During his eventful and illustrious military career of over 42 years, he held a number of key appointments both in India and abroad. For his distinguished and dedicated service, he was awarded the Param Vishisht Seva Medal, Ati Vishisht Seva Medal, Vishisht Seva Medal by the President of India. He is the first officer from the Corps of Engineers to be the Chief of Army Staff. He is the graduate of the Staff College, Camberley in the United Kingdom, the Higher Command course at Mao, and the National Defense College. General Pandey holds a master's degree in defense studies and an MPhil degree in defense and management studies. In addition, the general has attended a number of important courses of instructions and seminars in India and abroad. The general has vast experience of operating in different types of terrain and operational environments. Besides being the General Officer Commanding-in-Chief of the Army's Eastern Command, he holds the unique distinction of heading the only tri-service Andaman and Nicobar Command of the Indian Defense Forces. The general has demonstrated great respect for diversity by virtue
friends, and Jai Hind to all of you. It's indeed a great opportunity to be speaking to a gathering such as this, who I believe are the future of the country. And I must thank the director of IIT Bombay, the faculty, and the student body, student organizers who've given me this opportunity to talk to you. And I must thank Admiral Philippos for this very generous introduction. But I must tell you that I'm not going to give a lecture, because lecture is not a very sort of smart thing to do. But I will try and share some of my experiences, largely focusing on what are the leadership lessons which young boys and girls like you, who are the future leaders, could imbibe, and what are the learnings from the Army's experience in that manner. Because I believe as you grow up, as you move forward, each one of you will be picking up leadership roles in whatever domain, whatever career you choose to take. So let me start by initially explaining to you what Army, or for that matter the armed forces, what defines us. What is it that Army or the armed forces stand for? So I believe it's a microcosm of values that the citizens of the country look up to. In the defense forces, you have unity in diversity, It's a very good example of what national integration is about, where you have soldiers from different religions, different parts of the country who speak different languages, all work together for a common cause. What underpins our ethos, and I shall be talking of it later as well, is this ethos of service before self. Often I'm asked as to what is it that makes a soldier endure all the hardships along the borders, deployed elsewhere, and more importantly, what is that glue which makes the soldier sacrifice, face hardships, and even make the supreme sacrifice when required, that is to lay down their lives. So I'll try and dilate on some of these. And what is it that, why do people look at army or the defense forces as a last resort, which has never failed the nation? And why do they think that this is the most trusted brand, if I were to talk in corporate terms? So let me start by saying that each organization, be it a university, be it a college, industry, has a unique organization culture or the DNA. So what is the Army's DNA? And DNA or an organization culture, which I believe is unique to that organization, which defines its identity, which guides the behavior of all its members. And it is built on customs, traditions, beliefs, and the culture is something which evolves over time. It is also a prime mover for the collective behavior. So if you look at any of the industries or any of the organizations in the civil street, you straightway talk of what is the culture in that organization which makes it tick. It is that silent, I would say, aspect which you do not see it on the surface, but it is extremely important. In corporate world, you talk of strategies and culture, and one of the management gurus, I recall, had mentioned that culture eats strategy for breakfast. So it is not only good for corporates to have a good strategy, but if you do not have a good organization culture, your strategy, I would say, is no good. It often is, in our case, the difference between winning and losing. And in battle, in wars, where lives are involved, there are no runners-up. So to that extent, in the army, the only culture that we believe in is the winning culture. There are 4 key aspects when you look at organizational culture in the army. And the first is for the leaders to lead by example, and that is something which the soldiers look up to a leader. What is it that a leader, when he says, a soldier will be prepared even to give his life? So leading by example, I believe, is extremely important. And dare I say, it is important in all walks of life. The second aspect is this ethos, and we call it of Naam, Namak, and Nishan. Naam is to do with your organization by which you identify, you associate with the organization. Namak is the loyalty. And Nishan is something that you would again fight for your organization. These 3 things is something which binds all soldiers together. We also believe in the army, it's like a family. So our relationships with the soldiers, not only the soldiers, their families, is not only limited to while you're in service. So this relationship, this bonding goes beyond your service life. So in the army, you make lifelong friends, you nurture these relationships which stand you in good stead throughout your lives. Let me come to, so what are the values that in the army, or values that a soldier tries to imbibe? Largely there are 7 values, and first is that of loyalty, of which I briefly mentioned. Loyalty to your country, loyalty to the constitution, loyalty to the unit or the organization that you belong to. Second is duty. Now duty is different than, your responsibility to complete the assigned task. Duty goes beyond achieving what the immediate task that you have at hand. Third is the respect. Respect is to do with dignity, dignity of each member of your team, respect for each member of the team. Fourth is selfless service. This is extremely important, and this is, I would say, very well defined by what we refer to as a Chetwoodian motto, which is very prominently inscribed in our training academy at Dehradun. And it reads something like this. It says, safety, honor, and welfare of your country comes first, always and every time. The honor, welfare, and comfort of the soldiers or the troops you command comes next. And your own comfort, ease, and safety comes last, always. Now, this is the ethos by which each member of the army or each soldier of the army, each officer lives by. Next is the honor. Honor is again to do with loyalty. It is to, how do you uphold the honor of your organization? That is something which is extremely dear to us. Integrity. Part of integrity is your character at the individual level. Again, I'll spend some time on this a little later. And last is personal courage. When you talk of personal courage, there are two facets to it. One is the physical courage, which we all understand, wherein you go into battle knowing for sure that you are facing death. So that is where the physical courage counts. And second is the moral courage, which is as important. So these are some of the values which are very dear to us, which are very dear to all the soldiers. There are certain other values besides these 7 that I just mentioned. First is the esprit de corps, as to how you form part of a team. How do you gel in a team? Camaraderie, again, how do you build camaraderie when you're working in a team? Extremely, extremely important for us. So in the army, we believe in an organization, you don't need gladiators, but you need guys or members who are committed, who will help each other, who will be good part of a team, and that is something which is very important. And last is the secular nature, where I mentioned where you have soldiers from different religions, different parts of the country, languages, etc., all coming together. Now, it will surprise some of you to know that in an army unit, when you look at religious places of worship, you have under one building or in one room, you have a mandir, you have a masjid, you have a church, and you will have a gurdwara, depending on what is the composition or the religion of your soldiers. Now, this is something very, very unique, and I think in today's world, this is extremely, extremely important. We also believe in what is the warrior ethos or the soldier's ethos. It essentially has 4 parts. First is mission first. Your mission, the task given to you, is the foremost thing. You must do everything to accomplish that mission. Second is to never accept defeat. And I mentioned in battle, there are no runners-up. So you have to be at the winning end. Third is to never quit. Whatever the circumstances, even if you face some drawbacks, setbacks, failures, you cannot be quitting. You have to be at it to accomplish your mission. And lastly is never to abandon a fallen comrade. So that is to do with teamwork. So for us, individuals are not as important as being a part of a team, or individual is as important as the rest of the members of your team. For young boys and girls like you, who will grow to be leaders in the future, and I keep saying this often, I feel there are 4 C's which are very important for you to grow into good leaders in the future. And first of the C's is character. I think this is the most important thing you all must imbibe, and this is possibly the most critical. And character includes aspects such as integrity, honesty, selflessness, moral courage, and fortitude. Now, character is something which will guide you to choose the harder right over the easier wrong. It will also tell you that you must do the right thing or against a winning thing. So I will urge you to focus on building a strong character based on what all I just mentioned. Also important is combat leadership. Now for us in the military, when you are facing bullets, the leadership takes a different connotation. It is different than leadership on the shop floor. So combat leadership, when you face dangers, how do you measure up to it, is something which is extremely dear to us. Next C is competence. Now competence is about knowledge, about the skills that you imbibe. It is also about accepting that there is more to learn in whatever profession you choose. So I will urge you to make this aspect of achieving excellence in your chosen field as something which is an enduring quality. Third is, and the last is commitment. So commitment towards your team goals, commitment to your organization goals, commitment towards whatever you as an individual are doing, but more importantly, what you do as a team. So these are the 4 C's I will urge you to focus on. As you move forward, you will realize that challenges, difficulties will come your way, but that is part of the game. You have to learn to face failures, face setbacks. If you fall down, always look at it only as a temporary setback. You must learn to get up. You will, trust me, come up much stronger. Have that never say die attitude, and that is what I feel is the mantra for you to become good leaders. A few words of advice to young boys and girls like you. I believe you are the torch bearers of our nation, which is on a great growth trajectory. There are tremendous opportunities await bright young boys and girls like you. Your goals, your passions, your ideas, your determination and sacrifices will determine as to how our great country is able to pursue its goals, objectives. So move ahead with confidence, dream big, work towards achieving those dreams. Also, you must, as you grow up, try and contribute to the society in whatever manner you can, because that is what, at that stage, it will be the payback time. So love for your country must always remain a passion with you. So chase your dreams with passion. Keep the quest for knowledge as a defining factor in your lives. Hard work and perseverance. There is no shortcuts. That is something you need to aim at. You have to have humility. You have to have compassion, especially towards those who are in need. You must have role models. If not role models, you must have mentors who must guide you at different stages of your career. Also make good friends. Develop lasting friendships, because that is something which will last you throughout your life. That will again be an important and a great asset. You also must respect our culture, the values that we as a country stand by, because that is again very important. Tolerance for different religions, different points of views is something which is defined in our culture. So this is another aspect that each one of you, I urge you to focus on. So this is what I had to tell you in terms of what leadership is about, what our military or the army stands for. And I wish you all the very best in whatever careers that you choose to follow, and wish you Godspeed. And thank you once again providing me this opportunity to speak. Jai Hind.
And the next speaker is the former Naval Chief Admiral R. Hari Kumar. I forgot to mention one very important factor. The 3 former chiefs on the stage are all course-mates or batchmates from the 61st course of NDA. So it is a very unique thing. Since independence, only been about 2 occasions where 3 batchmates have reached the pinnacle of their respective services. So it's another unique factor, you know, and it went a long way in ensuring the synergy, because if you see each, I'll be describing each of them, each one of them had this huge thrust towards ensuring the synergy between the 3 services, and that has endured till now, and that's a legacy which they've left after their time. So Admiral R. Harikumar was the 25th Chief of Naval Staff. During his career spanning over 41 years, nearly 23 years were spent at sea, including the command of INS Nishank, INS Korar, these are missile corvettes, INS Ranveer, the destroyer, and the aircraft carrier INS Virat, reflecting his vast operational experience in the maritime domain. He was the fleet commander of the Western Fleet based in Mumbai, and later the commander-in-chief of Western Naval Command. He was also the HR head of the Navy. As the CISC and Vice Chief of Defense Staff to the first CDS, he was involved in setting up the office of the CDS and the Department of Military Affairs, reflecting his experience in tri-services matters, jointness, and interoperability and integration. As the Navy Chief, he ushered in major transformational initiatives such as the roadmap for an Atmanirbhar Navy by 2047, including disruptive and unmanned technology, induction of women in the enlisted ranks, the Agnipath scheme, successful anti-piracy operations at extended ranges, and progressing the Maritime Anti-Piracy Act of 2022. He introduced the 360-degree appraisal system, gave a thrust to underwater domain awareness, and focused on jointness and integration with the sister services. He attended the US Naval Staff course at Naval War College, Rhode Island, USA, Army High Command course at the Army War College, Mahu, near Indore, and the Royal College of Defense Studies at London. He holds an MA International Studies from King's College, London, MPhil Defense and Strategic Studies from Mumbai University, and a PhD in leveraging artificial intelligence and machine learning towards optimizing maritime security. He has also been conferred a PhD by the Karnavati University of Ahmedabad in 2023. For his outstanding contribution to the nation, he was awarded the Vishisht Seva Medal, the Ati Vishisht Seva Medal, and the Param Vishisht Seva Medal. He is married to Mrs. Kala Nair. They have one daughter who is working currently in New Zealand. Admiral R. Harikumar.
First of all, let me thank the director for inviting me here to come and interact with you all. It's a great pleasure every time to come and speak and interact with the young minds. It makes me also feel young. All the same, there was a Harvard study which said that you can speak at about 100 to 150 words per minute, but you can listen at about 400 to 500 words per minute. So that shows there's a gap between, what you're hearing, and there is a little bit of RAM space which is available in the brain. And because of that, many times we fall asleep. So I can see a number of them, fast asleep. I'll speak a little bit about the maritime domain and then what the Navy does, and how the Navy has progressed towards Atmanirbharta, okay? Just as a matter of interest, I want to ask, how many of you have seen the sea? Anybody who has not seen the sea? Raise your hand. Okay, I want to tell you that Emperor Akbar had seen the sea only once in his lifetime, in those days. So that shows that our rulers in Delhi were people who had rarely seen the sea, okay? And anybody who's spent more than 24 hours at sea on a ship or a boat? Hardly. Yeah, very few. That's good. So that shows how little we know about the sea, okay? 70% of the globe is actually water. is oceans. And 85% of the nations have access to the sea. But very little part of the sea is actually under the control of anybody. You know, the territorial sea is only about 5%. So about 95% is actually uncontrolled, ungoverned, ungovernable, I would say, quite unlike land. See, on land, you can have, you know, borders. If you cross the border, it is war. You know, you're trespassing into somebody else's. Similarly, is the airspace over the land. But when it comes to the sea, it's completely different. You know, foreign warship can pass, you know, within even 10 miles of your coast, which is your territorial waters, if it is doing innocent passage. So these international laws have evolved over a period of time, over probably hundreds of years, I would say maybe 400-500 years. And that is why when we talk of sovereignty issues on land, you know, if somebody crosses the border, it's an offense. It's a, you know, it's a violation of your border. But if somebody passes through your territorial waters doing innocent passage, it is not. So there is a cognitive dissonance in our understanding of sovereignty itself. So, very few of us actually understand what the Navy does and what the maritime domain is all about. There is something called the 66, 70, 80, 90, 99 rule. Okay, what does it mean? It means that 66% of our resources actually come from in and around the sea. 70% of the globe is water, oceans, just like the human body. 70% of the body is water. 80% of the people, we live within the coastal areas. 90% of our trade passes through the sea. And 99% of our internet traffic, it goes under the sea. Okay, the cloud that we talk of, it's not in the cloud, it's actually under the ocean. So all the data, everything passes through the sea. So that's how important the sea is. Okay, and we are blessed to have the Indian Ocean named after us, the third largest ocean, with so much of resources available. And what do we get from the sea? We've got resources, you know, whether it's fuel, fish, gas, minerals. Similarly, water is the most efficient means of transportation available today. Okay? So for the same amount of energy, you can transport, say, 1 kg by road, 10 kgs by rail, and 100 kgs by sea. So it is 1:10:100. So that is the scale of efficiency in transportation by sea. So unless one of you discover quantum transportation, which is more efficient than that, I think we'll be stuck with transportation by sea. Okay? It's also means of information and communication, and it is also means of dominion. So we don't have to look far. If you look back about 300 years back, we were subjugated by the British who came through the sea, the East India Company. But this is all despite the fact that historically India has been a seafaring nation. Okay, there is ample evidence to show that 5,000 years back, the Indian Ocean was the oldest traveled ocean. You know, the Pacific and the Mediterranean, Atlantic, they all were traveled much later. Artifacts of Lothal have been found in Greece, which means what today we talk of the India, Middle East, Europe corridor, IMEC, that probably existed 5,000 years back. So it is just that we forgot our maritime heritage over a period of time. We got subjugated, and now we are sort of rediscovering it. The Maurya Empire, the Srivijaya Empire, they all talk of the maritime conquest and the maritime, the flourishing trade that existed between India and the Southeast Asian countries. And then we had Vasco da Gama, who came in 1498, and the British East India Company, who came through the sea. When in the 1600, we had Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, who talked of the sea power. He said, Chalameva Yashya, Balameva Tasya, meaning that he who rules the sea is all powerful. And this very same thought was echoed much later by Admiral Alfred Thayer Mahan in his book when he talked of the influence of sea power upon history somewhere in the 20th century. So what I would say is that while we were a flourishing maritime country, somewhere around the 14th century or so, we lost sight of the sea. We became sea blind, and that led to our being conquered. And when the British came, we were contributing 27% of the global GDP. And when they left in 1947, they reduced us to 3% of the global GDP. So that is how much, we lost in that time, all because of being conquered through the sea. And interestingly, the ship, was the most complex machine made by man from the Paleolithic age till as late as the middle of the 19th century. And if you had listened to our Honorable Prime Minister who spoke a few months back at Bhavnagar, he described the shipbuilding as the mother of all industries. And it's a fact that shipbuilding is a massive industry, and with support so many ancillary industries and so on. So for example, when INS Vikrant, the aircraft carrier, was built at Cochin shipyard, it had, it cost 30,000 crores. It had supported 2,000 jobs at the shipyard itself for almost 13, 14 years. And then it had a multiplier effect of almost 6.4 times. That means in the ancillary industries, there were more than 8,000, 9,000 jobs created. So shipbuilding is now a sector which has been given great thrust, and the government has announced almost 63,000 crores corpus towards facilitating that. And the sea also offers, the blue economy, fishing. We are the second largest exporter of fish, but in terms of fish consumption, we are way behind. An average Indian consumes about 13.5 kgs of fish in a year, while the global average is about 20 kgs. And the global highest is about 89 kgs, which is Japanese and the Maldivians. They consume so much. So there is, you see the scope of, the resources that can be harvested. Okay. Then ocean engineering solutions. We are talking of floating and underwater cities, which are being experimented currently. Underwater tourism. Examples are, we are even looking at underwater city, underwater tourism being promulgated of Dwarka and so on. We will have to redesign many of the ports because of global warming. And there is great thrust on green vessels, vessels which do not cause global warming and, air pollution and so on. So having said that, a little bit about the maritime domain, let me say what does the Navy do. The, Alfred Thayer Mahan said that the necessity for a Navy in the restricted sense of the word arises with the need for peaceful shipping and disappears with it, which means that if you are a country which doesn't have any trade, if you don't have any merchant ships, then you don't really require a Navy. Okay, for example, a country like Afghanistan, which is landlocked, it doesn't require a Navy. But if you have trade, if you have, if you want to import and export items, obviously the most efficient means is through the sea, and then therefore to safeguard that you require, a Navy. So what does the Navy do? It does 4 things, that is protect, preserve, promote, and pursue your national interests. And what are your national interests? Anything national interests in the maritime domain. They can be, they are your, island territories, your coastline, your trade, and, your economy, and so on. So when we are talking of becoming the 3rd largest economy, right now we are around, 4 trillion economy. When you become 5 or 10 or 15, what does that mean for our trade? That means we'll be producing more things, importing more things, and all that has to travel through the water. So therefore, the importance of the oceans is only going to increase more and more, with time, as we look forward to becoming a more developed nation. It is therefore the Navy's efforts, at sea, which ensures that you get your gas, you get your diesel, you get your, petrol, etc. at the correct rate. Whenever there is a piracy attack, somewhere, of Somalia, through the route through which the crude comes, you'll find that the insurance rates go up, the shipping rates go up, and thereafter, it is passed on to the consumer. So this is the job that the Navy does, 24/7, trying to keep the sinews of trade, flowing continuously. And in the Navy, there is cutting-edge technology, not just in electronics. The Navy is a service where you have all 5 types of propulsion in the world. That is steam, gas turbine, diesel engines, electric propulsion, and nuclear propulsion as well. So it's an advanced service which offers good career prospects for those who are keen on joining and pursuing their area of choice. So coming to Atmanirbharta part of it, when I met with the Honorable Prime Minister, I had made a promise to him that where he had said that 2047 is the year that he's looking at Bharat becoming a developed nation. I had said that we will try, to be a Atmanirbhar Navy as well. That means anything that matters, anything that is important, anything and everything that is important for the Navy will be made in Bharat. So that is the promise we had done. And how could we make this promise? Because my predecessors, the previous chiefs had worked, for a long time to instill this culture of self-reliance. So in the very early days, immediately after independence, the Navy had set up a Department of Naval Design. And this Directorate of Naval Design, this directorate was able to make the first small patrol craft, which was commissioned in the year 1962. And since then, we have been making bigger and bigger ships. So from there, it went on to a corvette, a frigate, a destroyer, LSTs, and finally culminating in the INS Vikrant, the aircraft carrier. So, which I would say, and similarly, we've been building submarines as well. So, I would say that this is a culture which had been set long back, and then it had been strengthened and progressed over time. So we had decided that we'll move from being a buyer's navy, where we used to buy ships from, say, Russia and second-hand ships from UK and so on, to a builder's navy. So I would like to say very proudly that as of today, over 60 ships are under construction, and every one of these ships are being built in India. Okay? And in ship construction, there are 3 things. So we classify it as 3 parts. That is, one is to float. Then once you float, you have to move. And third is to fight. So as far as float is concerned, it basically talks of the steel and, the basic hull of it, where we have achieved almost 95% and above indigenization. We hardly require anything from outside. The steel is now made in India. Collaboration between the Navy, DRDO, Midani, and SAIL, has resulted in DMR 249 Alpha and Bravo steel, which is adequate for, building warships. And similarly, the next thing is the move component. That means once you have a hull, it needs to propel. So there we are somewhere around 65 to 70%, because we are yet to make the main propulsion engines, basic diesel engines. We would have heard of Kirloskar, so many companies making diesel engines, but unfortunately they don't have their own engines. Most of it is being made under license. So now orders have been placed for indigenous development of engines of the required power. So that is now underway. So we are quite sure that this is again an area where we will progress well. We need to make a gas turbine, we need to make diesel engines and so on, and gas turbine generators. And the third area, of course, is the fighting part of it. Now, to fight, you require, weapons. Now, this is where we are somewhere around between 55 and 60%. Gradually, we are making more and more of them. Bell, BHEL, BrahMos, these are all the public sector companies which are involved in, making Keltron. They're all making weapons and sensors for us. The many times people ask you, do you get the best in the world? Definitely not. We don't get the best in the world. But then, I give that answer, that typical answer which, Spartan father gave to his son, who told him, father, my sword is very short. So he told him, just take an extra step, it'll be long enough. So you have to make do with what you have, improvise, use it to your best of your ability, and then see how you can improve it. So you have your Mark 0, may not be that great, but then Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3, and so on, will improve. So that is the way ahead. We cannot, only rely on equipment that comes from abroad. So, therefore, we have now transited to a builder's navy that is, being looked at as a postmodern navy, which will be completely Atmanirbhar by 2047. So what is the facilitation that we have done for this? We have engaged with academia, institutions like yours. We got incubation centers. We have set up something called the NIIO, Naval Indigenization and Innovation Organization. There's a technology demonstration and development and acceleration cell. So they all work together, working very closely with the DRDO, with the private industry and the incubation centers to basically develop ideas, convert it into working models, and then, productionize it. Navy does a lot of handholding and close interaction with, all the stakeholders. So, just as, China has, improved its technological capabilities through interaction with the academic world and with the industry and so on. We also have no other way out. We need to interact with you. You're the brains, and you have to think, innovate, and we are the domain experts. We have to come together to see how best to produce something which is, world class. What are the challenges? The challenges are definitely, because in terms of miniaturization, metallurgy, there are space constraints on board ship. So these are areas, quality control, reliability, because a warship, or an aircraft is actually a very complex and highly coupled machinery. So it is in fact called a complex socio-technical system. So therefore, these are systems that require, great amount of involvement, innovative ideas and so on. And that has to come from, all of you sitting here. So therefore, I'll stop here. I'll just say that, the more we engage, the more we can be creative, the more innovative we can be, and find solutions to the challenges faced by the armed forces. And many of these will have application in the civilian field as well. You may know that the internet, for example, was actually a military application which, subsequently became the backbone of the entire communication network. Similarly, you would have seen this, the container which you use. It was developed out of a need for transportation of items, military items to South Korea by the US Army, and then it got commercialized. So like that, many applications that any applications may come up for the military will definitely have, applications in the commercial sector as well. So with that, I'll stop here. If you have any questions, etc., I'd, be glad to take that on. Thank you. Jai Bharat.
Thank you for that excellent talk, sir. You've taken us through the history of the Navy from the early days to the present day, as well as the challenges faced by the Navy and the remarkable journey as far as indigenization is concerned. So we've had an amazing talk by the Army Chief, the Navy Chief, and finally we have the Air Chief. So you have the land and you have the sea, and air covers everything. I'm biased towards the air because I'm a pilot myself. So finally we have the Air Chief addressing us. Air Chief Marshal V.R. Chowdhury was commissioned into the fighter stream of the Indian Air Force in 1982. He is an alumnus of the National Defense Academy and the National Defense Services Staff College, Wellington. The air officer has flown various types of aircraft and is highly experienced on the MiG-21, MiG-23 MF, and the MiG-29. He has flown over 3,800 hours and was a member of the Indian Air Force's first aerobatic team on the Kiran aircraft. He is a Cat A qualified flying instructor. I'll have to tell you what this means. A Cat A instructor is an instructor who teaches instructors. So he trains other instructors. That's what a Cat A instructor means. And an instrument rating instructor and examiner. The Air Chief Marshal has a rich and varied flying experience, including several operational missions. During his illustrious career, he has held a number of field and staff appointments. He has been an Air Force examiner on several types of fighter and trainer aircraft. He commanded a MiG-29 squadron and served as a Chief Operations Officer and Base Commander of frontline bases in Western and Southwestern Air Commands. He has served as an instructor at the Defense Services Staff College, Wellington, as well as the Defense Services Command and Staff College at Zambia. As Deputy Chief of the Air Staff, the Air Chief Marshal was instrumental in making the capability development plans for the Indian Air Force. He has headed operations of Eastern Air Command as the Senior Air Staff Officer and was the Air Officer Commanding-in-Chief of the Western Air Command. He has been the Vice Chief of the Air Staff prior to taking over as the 27th Chief of the Indian Air Force. In recognition for his meritorious service of an exceptionally high order, he was awarded the Vayu Sena Medal, Ati Vishish Seva Medal, and the Param Vishish Seva Medal. The Air Chief Marshal is married to Mrs. Neeta Chaudhary, and they are blessed with 2 sons. Air Chief Marshal V.R. Chaudhary.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a daunting task to speak after 2 of my colleagues have already engrossed you with myriad topics. But let me make it a little more lighthearted by taking this opportunity when I have 2 of my batchmates sitting on a stage here along with me. You know, once the 3 chiefs, service chiefs got together and they were deciding as to whose soldiers or sailors or airmen are the most courageous. You know, Army chief spoke about the virtues being courage is one of the 3 C's he spoke about. So he said, let's have a test. So the Navy chief called one of his sailors. He says, climb up here and jump. So the sailor jumped. He said, see what kind of courage he's got. The Army chief says, that is nothing. Call my soldier. He tells the soldier, go blindfolded on top and jump. So blindfolded, he jumps. He does one somersault and jumps. You see, that is courage. Now the Air Force chief calls his airman. He said, you come here, go on top and jump. So airman climbs up, he looks down and he says, pagal hai kya? So the air chief says, that is courage to talk to the chief like that. So, anyway, like I said, I will take the help of a few slides to cover what I want to do in the next 15 odd minutes. But before that, you know, as I go on, one event, one turning moment in the history of India was Operation Sindoor. You'll all agree this year? Yeah. I think everybody's chest fills with pride when we talk about how the armed forces achieved what they did. In 88 hours. So I'll just make a quick beginning with explaining to you in brief. Where do I point this? Okay, can you just go on the next one, please? No, no, next slide. Okay. Quick recap of all the events. Most of you would already know what happened. Firstly, a very bold decision by the government to strike terror camps deep inside Pakistan. Secondly, very bold planning by the joint teams of all the 3 services. And lastly, very bold execution. I will touch upon primarily what the Air Force achieved, my area of domain of knowledge. You are aware that initially on the 7th of May, on the early morning, we struck 9 terror camps deep inside Pakistan, out of which 2 were struck primarily by the Air Force, which were deep inside Pakistan. Bawalpur and Muridke, they were struck. You know, the first time we went so deep inside and hit them with absolute pinpoint accuracy. Once this happened, we expected some kind of a response to take place from there. So it did happen. On the 8th and 9th of May, the Pakistanis responded by carrying out multiple attacks using drones and missiles onto our military installations, onto civilian targets and so on. They even targeted hospitals in Udhampur. Now, fortunately, our air defense system, an integrated air defense system of all the 3 services, was able to thwart. We brought down every single drone or missile that was fired at us. No damage suffered at all within our country. But what happened was, when they were targeting our bases, our military bases, now this was getting a little out of hand. It said once they are hitting our bases, we have to retaliate and go and hit their bases from where the aircraft and drones got airborne. So on the 9th and 10th, what we carried out is an attack on their air bases and military targets. We hit them so hard, we hit them so precisely that they started waving the white flag once their primary air bases were hit. And where we hit them was where it hurts the most. Okay. So you've all seen these pictures. I will not go through it. Can you go on next slide, please? So what I'll cover is what were the drivers? How did we achieve what we did? Okay, first and foremost, you see that bullet, it says ISR, Intelligence, Surveillance, Reconnaissance. And how this obtained? Through these various means. Signal intelligence, the short form is SIGINT. Then we have IMINT, Image Intelligence, Open Source Intelligence, Human Intelligence, Satellite-based Surveillance. So when you put all these things together, you get a clear picture exactly who is hiding where. And remember, with the kind of surveillance that is available globally, there are no hiding places. So the targets were out for us. They were revealed to us that we need to go and hit them. A few years ago, you know that we had carried out the strike at Balakot. Unfortunately, within 15 minutes of hitting the terror camps in Balakot, it started raining heavily, and there was a cloud cover, and it didn't stop raining for the next 20 hours. So we could not get satellite imagery. By then, whatever had to be done, the cleaning up operations were done, and now people started questioning as to, did you really hit the targets? So this time we said, BDA, bomb damage assessment, is very important. We will bring back pictures. We will show you what we've hit. So these sources were from the unmanned aerial vehicles, from satellites, and weapon feedback. We have some weapons which are relaying imagery back right till the moment they impact the target. So all this was available, and this was shown on all the TVs. You've seen that. Again, what we needed to ensure that we have the information dominance, both in terms of the cyber and information operations, we needed to network all our air defense assets, because if they retaliated, we all need to be putting our resources together in one common network, which we did through what the Indian Air Force has, the IACCS network, and the Army's Akash Tir network. So both integrated together, we could thwart all their attacks on us. And of course, what stole the show was the long-range precision weapons, primarily the Indian-made BrahMos missile, which was fired from the Sukhoi 30 aircraft, and the Scalp missile, which was fired from the Rafale. You go on the next slide. So here are just some of these aircraft and weapons. The Rafale firing the Scalp and the Hammer missiles. The Sukhoi 30 firing the BrahMos. The Mirages carrying out air defense role. The AWACS, you see the antenna radar on top of the aircraft there, providing radar cover to all our aircraft there. And of course, the RPA, the UAVs of the Heron type, which provided us surveillance all the time. Go on to the next. When their attack came, how did we thwart that attack? With these air defense weapons, we had the S-400, it's a Russian equipment, newly inducted. Akash is an indigenous weapon, the Pichora, the Osa, Spider, and so on, the whole plethora of air defense weapons. Next slide, please. Okay, so this was in brief Op Sindoor. I will not delve into it. I can answer some questions later if there are. What I wanted to cover is, how did we reach where we did? What were the factors that allowed us to anticipate the changed character of warfare? What were the technologies that aided us in achieving what we did? So briefly, I shall just touch upon how are the technologies changing and what have we got today? And here, what role you can play in future. Next slide, please. Okay, so a few of them here. Stealth, you must have heard of stealth. Stealth is trying to be, invisible to the enemy radars. So it's a cat and mouse game going on for many years now, that you try to develop a stealth aircraft, and the other side is trying to develop a radar which can detect stealth. So this is an continuously going on cat and mouse game. Cruise missiles started in the Iraq war, the Gulf War. You must have heard about it. The Tomahawk cruise missiles fired from the ship could go almost 400 kilometers, almost undetected, and strike targets deep inside Iraq. So this actually changed the entire character of how warfare was being fought. There was no more contact battle. It was all long range precision weapons. Then the next one is PGM, precision guided munitions, BVR, all these abbreviations, please accept. BVR is beyond visual range. So no more weapons were being fired within. You didn't have to see something visually to fire at it. You could pick up through a radar or some other means and fire long range. Then, of course, the AESR radars, the electronically scanned array radars, which don't require the radar antennas to move. So with a fixed antenna, you have a very wide swath that can be covered. Data links, of course, network-centric warfare was the key to Operation Sindoor. The commanders all across the services had access to complete picture what was happening everywhere. Thanks to the network centricity, the commander could have been sitting anywhere in the country and still observing or taking decisions as to how to progress the operations. Hypersonic weapons is a new field which, as of today, there are no countermeasures to an hypersonic weapon. So if somebody launches an hypersonic weapon at a speed of 6 or 7 times the speed of sound, unfortunately, we do not have anything to counter that threat today. So this is something that we need to look at how to develop it in future. Of course, drones, unmanned vehicles, first-person view drones, large numbers being used in Ukraine and Russia, where actually the drones are relaying back information. You don't need to know the coordinates of a target. You can actually seek a target and strike it with that same drone. So these are all the new technologies that are going to change the warfare. Next slide, please. In the air domain particularly, the biggest challenge is, once again, matching technology with technology. So you heard, there's a race on to develop 5th generation fighters and 6th generation fighters. Now all the major countries are developing the same kind of fighters. What is going to happen? After 10 years down the line, every country is going to field a 5th generation fighter. So everybody going to be invincible? No. You need to have something beyond just, advancing one generation in a fighter aircraft. You need better radars, you need better sensors, and so on. Next slide, please. So the 4 pillars that I say that are required in the future are an robust communication network, a robust resilient sensor network. Then we require good shooters. This is a term that we use in the military very often. Shooters are the guys who actually do the firing. It could be a soldier on the ground, it could be a fighter pilot in the air, the guy who's going to actually press the trigger and fire a weapon on the enemy. So we need latest generation shooters and newer platforms, and of course, long-range standoff weapons. Next slide, please. So here is where now probably may be interesting to some of you here who are deep into technology and studying it for your future careers. So what are the key areas that we in the armed forces look forward to? Okay, I'll just touch upon 5 or 6 of them. The first is, of course, nanotechnologies. I don't need to elaborate, but in military terms, right now the development, the usage is limited, but the future is too wide open to be discussed here. Space. Again, the future, all these years we've been speaking about 3 primary domains of warfare. We have the land domain, the maritime domain, and the air domain. Now the 2 new domains are cyber and space. And space and cyber are going to be the most prominent domains in future. What we need to develop is what is called space situational awareness, both from the ground as well as from the space. Then we need to have capabilities, kinetic capabilities for deploying space assets, for bringing down adversarial space assets, and so on. Next slide. I think you've heard too much about AI and how it can help in battlefield management. Primarily, decision support systems are what we have to look at, how robust and resilient a decision support system can be. Quantum technology, again, the usage is the prospects of using this technology are actually humongous. Next one. Electronic warfare system. You know, the Operation Sindoor again brought one very important lesson home, that we need to strengthen our electronic warfare capabilities. We need to have both offensive as well as defensive electronic warfare capabilities. And here is where the academia is going to play a major role in helping the industry develop these kind of systems for us. Directed energy weapons, of course, you know, you've seen the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war, or you've heard about the Israel-Hamas conflict. You know, to bring down every $100 or $200 drone, you have to fire a missile which costs $10,000. Okay, so, you know, countries, the defense budget will get expended in only countering small drones or even decoys, unless you develop directed energy weapons where the cost per shot has to come down. And that is where I urge all of you to put your minds as to what can we do to make our country able to produce something in large numbers at the lowest possible cost. Long-range precision-guided weapons, of course, I said this is what brought us victory in Operation Sindoor. Digital twinning is an experiment that the Indian Air Force has been doing with IIT also. It's going to help us not only in our training, in maintenance, in simulation, in carrying out our, wargaming and so on. So this is an interesting area which is open to all of you here at the IIT. And robotics, very interesting walkthrough to the display today I had. And I found so many startup companies also spending their time and energy on robotics. Huge military usage here. Last one. Next. Next, please. Okay, so let's say all of you can contribute here in a large way through advanced research and development, because you have the time, the bandwidth, you have the resources. So I request all of you to please devote some time to think about the defense and security of our nation and how you can contribute in whatever small way that you can. Here is just an illustrative example of how we get left behind if we don't adapt quickly to technology. The technology acceptance curve, I don't need to explain the graph to all of you bright students here, but you go to the next one, the next slide, you'll see that if you delay adopting any technology, you're going to be left behind so badly that you'll never be able to catch up with your adversaries. So the ability not only to assimilate technology, to be able to translate it into production capability and induction into the armed forces is very essential. Here is again, you're aware of the TRL levels, a big role that the armed forces and the IITs can do together is to ensure that you jump across the valley of death, as they call it, and bring about your ideas, whatever, into production at the earliest. Yeah. So that's all I had to say. Finally, technology in warfare is not an innovation, it's a strategic necessity. So thank you for your attention. Jai Hind.
Thank you for your talk, sir. You took us through all the nuances of air power and where academia could play a role in the future trajectory of the Air Force as well as all three services. Now, we've taken quite some time, but now we are open to questions from the audience. So the procedure will be kindly stand up. One of the guys will give you a mic. Identify yourself with your name and your institution which you belong to, and who you are addressing the question to, please. Yeah, let's start. So can we circulate the mics, please? Okay, first, I think the guy in white, the boy in white stood up first. Him, followed by the gentleman in the black T-shirt. Can you let him, please, first? You can do the second question. He stood up first. Please start.
Meanwhile, I just ask.
Pardon?
By the time he is coming, can I ask?
Oh, your son. Okay.
No, he's not my son.
Okay. Yep. Okay, please start. You can.
That's fine. Good afternoon, all of you, and it's been a pleasure hearing all three of you. I belong from Mahu, which is the military headquarters of war, and it's a pleasure to hear all of you. My question is this, I have two questions. First of all, why our country is lacking behind in procurement of infrastructural gadgets and equipments. The procurement process is very slow. Secondly, Operation Sindoor is a great achievement, but there has been pitfall by losing Western allies, and there has been fake narrative which has been countering by India. And it is believed by a lot of our own people that we have achieved great, but the fake narrative which was been propagated by the Western countries and our Pakistan and other countries. So how to counter these things and not to get the morale of our own individuals going down. So I just repeat my questions. I have two questions. First, why the procurement process is so slow and how to counter that. And secondly, how to counter the fake narrative and pitfalls which are happening after any great operations which we have seen.
Thank you for your question. The procurement procedure is basically it's a tussle between being transparent and ensuring we get the best platform which comes in here. So, I mean, this is a similar situation in most countries, so it would take some time to change that. The second question, if I can request, who would you like to address that question to? Or anyone?
I will prefer General Manoj Pandey or Mr. Air Chief Marshal. They have been the primary for this.
Okay. Thank you. Please. So meanwhile, whoever wants the next question, kindly stand so that the mic will come to you.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair point and a correct observation. You know, some years back, perception, information warfare, influence operations, battle of narratives, it was not central to war fighting. But what we have seen in the last few conflicts that are ongoing, it is no longer at the fringes. It has to be part of our war planning. To that extent, we have to pay a lot of attention to what narrative we want to put out. There's another aspect. Earlier you thought the perception was only, within the country. It was only targeted or aimed at the constituency or your own citizens. But with the spread of social media, its footprint, it has a direct impact on what perception goes outside the country. So this is something which we learned. As to what needs to be done, I think there are 2-3 things. One, I feel, and I'm not saying as if it's not there, we need to coordinate better. There are a number of agencies besides the 3 services. Each of us, we have our PR or a strategic communication department, but there are others. Right? So we need to achieve better synergy. Somebody has to coordinate it at the central level, and then each one of us, based on the central theme, we need to then support and work towards driving that narrative or the story, or to influence operations, etc. And to be fair, over a period of time, we have learned it's an ongoing thing, but certainly the perception management, the narratives, influencing minds is an extremely important part, which I think the services have learned, and there are the structural changes which need to be put in place. That is also happening. But your point is very right.
Thank you. Next question, please. I think very well covered, thorough answer. I'm sure you're satisfied.
Hello.
Admiral, 1 second. Admiral Harikumar would like to add a point. The mic.
Yeah, I just want to add that where the Air Chief Marshal had said that the domains have increased. that is land, sea, air, space, cyberspace. There's one more domain actually, that is cognitive domain. So that is what we are talking of. So actually we are now fighting over minimum 6 domains. There may be more, but at least this is what is there in our thing. So the perception of the mind, as to how do you win that. And today we have reached a stage where, people are talking about technology by which, I might be able to read your mind. Now, when that happens, then, of course, it's a different set of challenges altogether. Okay?
Thank you, sir. Next question, the boy in white. Yeah.
Hello, first of all, it's an honor to be here and learning from all of you. Thank you for your service and thank you for everything you have done for the nation. My name is Param Patel. I'm from Surat, Gujarat. And my question is, with increasing de-dollarization and Bharat's increasing influential power with its becoming the leader of the global south, what are your views on how Bharat should increase its dominance in Indian Ocean with its becoming an even more important trade route and considering a possible power struggle with China?
I guess this question is obviously for Admiral Hari Kumar. Yeah. Sit, please sit, be comfortable.
Yeah, I had covered in my initial talk also that we, as we become the third largest economy or second largest economy, maybe 10, 15 years down the line, it is of, paramount importance for us to ensure that the oceans are safe, secure, free, open, and rules-based. Okay? We cannot allow anyone to come and disrupt that. Which is why in our areas of interest, especially the Indian Ocean, the choke points in the Indian Ocean, we have been deployed and we have been taking robust action. So while there are more than about 70 multinational forces, I would say, ships from US, UK, the European Union, and all deployed in the North Arabian Sea, very few of them have been taking robust action. While in our case, we have made it a point that if there is piracy or hijack or whatever, we will, take action and rescue them, irrespective of what nationality. While we have been told time and again by other navies, you please don't, take action because our nationalities are there. But we have been pursuing a policy of no tolerance to these things. And as a country, we are one of the few to come out with a legislation, the Maritime Anti-Piracy Act, as the first step to ensure that there is, good order at sea. So we do have the Chinese presence here. They have a base in Djibouti, but by and large, they have been peaceful. If it comes at some point of time into a tussle, then of course there are, we have a upper hand in the western edge of the Malacca Straits, where we have Port Blair and Andaman Nicobar Cheraf Islands. Similarly, we have the Laccadives Islands on the other side. And by geography, we are favored. So there is a great advantage that we have, and if we use our forces jointly, then there is definitely ability to dominate our areas of interest in the Indian Ocean. Okay, so that is what we are looking at. The development of the capability, the maritime capability. That includes air power, that includes sea power, everything, and our ability to ensure that the trade continues to flow. Now, what are the spin-offs of this? When we, as the largest resident naval power as of today in the Indian Ocean, when we exercise our maritime capabilities, then the spin-offs are, we work towards becoming the preferred security partner for most of the countries. And when you're talking of the global south, most of the global south countries are located in Africa and Asia and edges of the Pacific. So therefore, our involvement with them as part of the Indian Ocean, as part of the Indo-Pacific, and our Prime Minister had announced a scheme called Sagar, that is security and growth for all in the region, so which was announced almost 7-8 years back. And recently at Mauritius, he had announced the Mahasagar, which is particularly with an emphasis on supporting the global south. And what he's been saying all the while is that we don't want to grow alone, we want to grow along with everybody else. You know, it is not the prosperity from the ocean should benefit everyone. Okay, thank you.
Thank you everyone for being such a attentive and participative audience. So unfortunately, because of time, we've come to the end of this session, and I call upon Swapnila to conclude the session.
Thank you so much, sir. It's our pride, privilege, and honor to host all our ex-defense chiefs. Ladies and gentlemen, huge round of applause. Thank you so much for coming and visiting the Techfest 2025 Symposium 2.0. Now it's time to show our appreciation and gratitude to our guests, and to do that, we'll present mementos to our guests. So may I please invite Professor Surya Narayan Dola to join the stage for the felicitation ceremony. Please put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen. Now to felicitate General Manoj Pandey, 29th Chief of Army Staff of Indian Army, may I invite Aditya Vyas from Team Tecfest with a memento. Ladies and gentlemen, huge round of applause for Team Tecfest for effortlessly managing and organizing such a huge event. Now to felicitate our Admiral R. Hari Kumar, the 25th Chief of Naval Staff of the Indian Navy, may I invite Hardik Gupta from Team Techfest with a memento. Huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Show some energy. They are our heroes. Now to felicitate Air Chief Marshal Vivek Ram Chaudhary, the 27th Chief of Air Staff of Indian Air Force, may I invite Akshit Singhal from Team Techfest with a memento. Now energy, energy. How's the Josh, ladies and gentlemen? And last but not the least, to felicitate Rear Admiral Philippos, may I invite Lakshya and Mayank from Team Techfest with a memento. How's the Josh? How's the Josh? I can't hear. How's the Josh? Thank you so much, Professor. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank our ex-defense chiefs yet again. Thank you so much, sir, for your visit at the Techfest and at the Symposium 2.0. Your presence, your visit continue to guide, inspire, and motivate some of the brightest minds of the country at the IIT Bombay. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for me to call it a day, but जाने के पहले इतना मैं कहना चाहूँगी कि ये हमारी आर्मी, नेवी और एयरफोर्स ही है जिसके बदौलत आज हम गर्व से कह सकते हैं कि हमको मिटा सके ये ज़माना, ज़माने में दम नहीं, कि हमको मिटा सके ये ज़माना, ज़माने में दम नहीं, हमसे है ज़माना, ज़माने से हम नहीं. Woo! Come on, ladies and gentlemen, अपनी अपनी जगह पे खड़े हो जाइए और we'll just cheer for India before we leave. Come on, Jai Hind! Jai Hind! Jai Hind! Thank you so much, all of you, for coming to Symposium 2.0, for visiting Techfest. You guys are rocking. Thank you. Thank you so much. This is Swapnila signing off. Thank you.